Hey everybody, how's it going? It's Dr. Cruz from Design Your Destiny with Dr. Cruz. So, I want to talk about two of the most powerful influences in your life. So, lately, I've had a lot on my mind, right? So, as many of you know, I work with psychiatric patients, I work with substance abusers. I recently moved to Hollywood and LA, and there's a homeless population here that's ridiculous. It's out of control. It's really unfathomable almost, you know what I mean? Well, maybe you don't, because if you're not here, you don't really maybe get it, but it's bad. I grew up in foster care. And I just see, now that I'm on the other side of all my pain and my struggle and all of that, I see it in other people. I see marriages that are unequally yoked. I see women desperate for love and relationships. I see men who don't understand the value of a relationship or a woman, and they abuse people, not only the woman and the relationship, but they abuse their parents. Sons that abuse their mothers and disrespect their parents. It's rampant, right? The disrespect and the fact that people are so lost. So I think that's pretty much the gist of my topic today is why are we so lost as a people, right? And it's sad, it's mind-boggling. And the thing is that like people who are in the midst of being lost and who are in the midst of being abused and misused and disrespected and people who are living a life that don't even have a vision for their future, right? This is like basic life 101. To know who you are as a human being, what is your personal value, and then to also know your purpose, right? And so I want to talk about the two most important influences in your life is number one, knowing who you are. Who are you at the core of your essence? And number two is your purpose, right? What is your purpose? In fact, I'm gonna combine that with number one. Who are you at the core of your essence? What is the core of your essence? What are you, right? So for me, over the years, I grew up in foster care, so I didn't have parents or family, uncles, aunts, grandparents, cousins, any of that to help me figure out my identity. And so I didn't know my identity for decades. Right? It's only recently, and I'm still developing my identity. But at the core of who I am, I have chosen to believe that I'm a spirit of God, that I'm actually an extension of the Spirit of God, right? I am not God. I am not the God, but I was made in his or its likeness, whatever, right? His likeness, whatever God is. And to me, I have my own definition of what God is. And so this isn't a talk about what is God, but, I believe God is energy, right? And at the core of who I am energy. I am a spirit. I am the Spirit of God, right? I'm an extension of the Spirit of God. And so for me, I had a fucked up life. And so I understood that basic element and essence of who I was as a human being. And that's pretty sad that it took me pretty much 40 years to figure that out, right? Because it's a little complicated, right? Because you got to think about the brain. What is the purpose of the brain, right? And so one of the main purposes of the brain is to keep you safe, right? To keep you safe. And so the way my brain kept me safe throughout the decades was through fear, right? So I had so much fear that I became paralyzed, right? And no one had developed my mind how to think, right? So that delayed me getting a good understanding of who I was at the core of my essence. I didn't even know I was supposed to figure that out, right? Because how do we learn things in life? We learn things through the other, right? Through the other people in our life. So, going back to the two main influences is number one, know who you are at the core of your essence, and what is your purpose. Once you figure out your definition of who you are, what is not only the core of your essence, what are you, but what is your purpose, right? So that's the number one major influence of your life. The other influence is your environment. Right. I'm sorry, I got my hair cut the other day and I got it colored. And I just want to say to hairstylists, if you don't know what the fuck you're doing with hair, go get a different career. Straight up, because it's so difficult to find a hairstylist that knows what they want. I asked for like a burgundy kind of like strawberry orange, and they gave me brown with blonde highlights. I probably need to make a separate video just to vent on that, right? Incompetent people, especially hairstylists. So if you're in LA and you know how to cut hair, I'm gonna need you to holler at me, because I don't know where they at. Not only LA, but when I was in Georgia too. So it could be me. Maybe I'm just looking in the wrong places, but everywhere I look, I come up with incompetent hairstylists. So if you could cut, if you're a colorist, please contact me. I need your help. Okay. All right. So back to the there's so many really important, powerful things about, life and how it affects us. But the second one that I chose is our environment, right? Because, from the moment that we're born, we are influenced by our environment, right? Even before we're born, we're influenced by the environment that our parents put us in, right? Whether it's prenatal, and then once we're born, the environment that we're born into. And if we're born into poverty, if we're born into wealth, if we're born into dysfunction, if we're born into education, if we're born into love, if we're born into abandonment, abuse, the craziness of it all, right? That environment, and we don't really have control over that until we're older in our teenage years. And many teenagers end up running away or whatever, because they're like, I can't deal with this. But everybody's not made that way, right? So when I grew up, and I grew up in foster care, I didn't have the personal power to run away, because I was like, where am I gonna go? So that thought never crossed my mind when I was younger. But I had a male family member who he bounced at, like 15, right? So, but actually I bounced too, because after I lived in foster care, I moved in with my grandfather. I didn't actually move. I was placed with my grandfather. And he started sexually abusing me. So at 15, I ran away. So I say that to say that until we're a certain age, right? Because we got this thinking organ up here that if we're not taught how to think, it doesn't start thinking, right? It works off instinct, and it works off emotion, but it has to be taught how to think. So we have the capacity to think, but that's why, you ever hear the saying, common sense is not common. It's because everybody's not thinking on the same level, right? So, our environment is very powerful over who we become. So if we never ask or question or discover or research or meditate on who am I and what is my purpose, first and foremost. If we never get around to that question, and we're only influenced by our environment, and in addition, if we're never taught how to think, we're pretty much already losing in life. Sorry, I was reading a text message. We're already pretty much losing in life, because if you don't know who you are, you don't know what's at the core of your essence as a human being, you don't know your purpose, and you're influenced predominantly by your environment. And if if someone rolled the dice on your life and you didn't get the good die, you might be in an environment that's not really conducive to your well-being. Hold on. Okay. So if you're in an environment where it's not conducive to your well-being and to the advancement of your potential and your self-discovery, then what are you stuck with? Ignorance. So you grow up ignorant to the facts of who you are, what your purpose is, what your potential is, and how to go about it, because your environment is not teaching you that. Now, there are some people who are very I don't really know what the word is, but they're like self-aware, I think maybe would be a good word. They're born more aware than other people. I wasn't one of those people. I wasn't born self-aware. I was born into violence and poverty and abuse, and fear consumed me. And so fear consumed me in my mind. And so I became a prisoner of fear. And then I went into the military and then lived 20 years in fear. So it's only been since I retired from the military that I started really discovering who I am. And that's really the importance of understanding right here, right now, that the two most, I don't want to say the most important, but the two very powerfully influential things in your life is, number one, you must know who you are at the core of your essence. You must begin to ask yourself, who am I? How did I get here? And what is my purpose? Because, the Bible reminds us that those without a vision will perish. And so how can you have a vision for your future and an accurate vision for your future if you haven't yet discovered your purpose? Right? What is your vision for your future if you don't know what your purpose is? Right? And so this is a really interesting topic to me lately, because I always thought my purpose was something, whatever that I discovered, or this, that, and the other thing. But the older I get, the more I realize that my purpose has to do with the essence of who I am. The essence of who I am. And can't nobody tell you who the essence of you is. That's something you have to discover within you, in your own meditation time, in your own prayer time, in your own, self-reflective time. And we come to know ourselves in comparison to other people, right? And not just comparison, but in relation. Let me say it that way, not comparison. In relation to other people, whether it's relationships, right? And predominantly it is in relation to other people, because that's what we're kind of so-called comparing ourselves. We get a vision of what we think we should be by the relation we have with other people. And so that's why people who are in poverty really just kind of relate to other people who are in poverty, and people who are wealthy relate predominantly with people who are wealthy, and PhDs predominantly relate to PhDs. Like pretty much attracts like, right? And so until you start exposing yourself to other environments outside of the one that you're accustomed to, you really don't know what you're capable of, because you haven't seen the possibilities in the reflection of the relation that you have to other human beings who are at their essence the same thing that you are, right? Because we're not just this body. This body came from the dirt. This is just like a casing. This skin, these bones, this is a casing for the things that are internal to us. And the things that are internal to us are the things that we actually are. our energy, our spirit, our organs. Our organs, I don't know if they're actually like what we are, but they are an essential part of our being, right? Our being. So it's just really heavy on my mind, because if you look around, every marriage, every relationship, and I think what really breaks my heart is, women, really young girls, right? Young, whatever, young women, and girls. When they do, and it breaks my heart for young men too. Like, I have such a strong calling to help young men, because they're so lost. The majority of the homeless people I see are men. How can that be? How can that be? Physically, the superior human. Physically, man is the male. The male. Because biblically, the terminology man, we're all mankind, right? But the male, physically, he's the superior being. He's way stronger than a female, right? He's built to build. He's built for strength. He thinks logically, typically, right? Men typically think logically. How is it that most of the people who are homeless in LA are men? How is it that most of the sex traffickers and the abusers of girls are men? It's mind-boggling. How is it that so many girls, and I was one of them, and I could tell you why I did it, but how is it that so many girls, of our girls, these are our girls and our boys in the world, how is it, and this is a reflection of us as human beings. I'm not talking about other people. This is us. Because the reflection that they show us is a reflection on some level of us. But I wonder, how can it be that so many young girls and so many women, age really is irrelevant because it happens across the board, are so desperate for love? That we're so desperate, and it's not that we're just desperate for love, but we were built to be in relationship with each other. And so it's a natural experience for us to grow up, right? In high school, junior high school, and to want to be in relation, right? That's why there's a popular group, and then there's the nerds, and then there's the whatever. I don't even know these days what they're called. But back in my day, there was the punk rock group, and then there was the this, that, and the other thing, right? But we're built to be in relation to people. And so, of course, boys and girls are going to be attracted to each other. How is it that the boys end up being so, just in general terms, I'm not bashing anyone. I'm talking about the sad reality of humanity, because we don't know who we are at the core of our essence, and we don't know our purpose, and we don't realize how powerful our environment is. How is it that so many boys that start out in school, they've never learned how to respect the girl? And so they grow up not really understanding what it is to be honorable and to respect a girl in a relationship. And then how is it that the girl is so desperate to feel significant to a guy that she has no standards? And how do we not know? How do we not recognize? As a woman, I could say when I was younger, how was it that I did not recognize? I didn't have any standards for the men I was dating. It was like, oh, he's cute, I'll date him. Oh, we're having fun, I'll date him. And not really even date, whatever we did, we kicked it, right? So he was cool, he was cute, he was fly, he was this, he was that, he was the other thing, and we kicked it. But he was a fucking idiot. How is it so many of our girls are dating these fucking idiots? It's mind-boggling. And how is it that they don't know they're idiots? And how is it that the girl doesn't realize she's an idiot for fucking dating an idiot? And I don't mean idiot as in like I'm judgmental, but the idiot, the lack of intelligence, the lack of wisdom, the lack of self-respect that these men, and I'm not bashing men, I'm just using it as an example because, you know, we could talk across the board, right? How is it? I'm just not going to go there. I'm not going to go there because I could go deep with it. The point is we need to teach our children, and we need to know. Parents, you need to know who you are at your essence. Who am I? Because if you don't know who you are and you don't know your purpose, Jesus, what is your life going to be? Because you're moving from a place of emptiness, of lack of identity. And if you have no identity and you have emptiness inside of you, then you will accept any fool into your circle. Because you haven't learned to have standards because you don't know who you are. When you know who you are, you got standards. When you can say, I'm intelligent and I'm a child of God and I'm beautiful and I am beautiful inside and outside and I deserve respect. And I'm not going to tolerate your foolishness. If you can't pick up your pants, you can't hang with me because I need people who look decent. I'm not hanging with the crazies. You got to have standards. The first time somebody screams on you needs to be the last time. Because if you're dealing, male or female, men, if you're dealing with a woman that doesn't know how to control her emotions and she's freaking on you, and she's screaming and she's throwing things. And I used to be one. I'm not a hypocrite. Everything I talk about, I've been through. I've been the fool. I've been the idiot. I've been the screamer. I've been the one to throw stuff over the balcony. I've been the flat tire perpetrator. Right? How was it I didn't know that was crazy? Like that wasn't who I really was at the core of my essence. I became that person. People become this version of themselves. These homeless people become this version of themselves. People in prison become that version of themselves. Men who abuse women become that version of themselves. Women and girls and young ladies who accept and tolerate the bullshit that they should never entertain whatsoever on any level, period. They accept that version of themselves because they don't know who they are at the core of their essence. We got to get to know ourselves. We have to know ourselves. We have to know our purpose. And we have to understand how influential our environment is. We become this version of ourselves because our environment has not taught us to be excellent, to be better, to understand what it is. Hold on. I'm doing a video. I'm gonna need you to skedaddle. You interrupted my thought process.
You should have been in your cage.
So I lost my thought process as soon as she opened the door, but we become the version of ourselves because our environment hasn't awakened our mind, hasn't taught us how to think, hasn't expressed to us how phenomenally precious we were made. That our potential and our purpose is not frivolous, that it's very unique. And you can't figure out your value or your purpose by asking other people. You can't find it there. You only know your value by asking your maker, because your maker made you for a purpose, and that's the only person, thing, energy, wisdom that's going to be able to tell you what your purpose is. You don't even know. So don't try to figure it out. You're going to have to consult your spirit. So carry yourself with high standards and don't tolerate people mistreating you. And make it your life's mission to figure out who you are at your core essence. Because if you don't know, then you're living the wrong life. And you won't live the right life, the life you're supposed to live, until you figure out who you are and what your purpose is. Y'all know your purpose down there?
We're working on that right now.
I love you, baby.
Love you too.
All right, we're gonna go. Bye.